Give it a couple more minutes.
Okay.
All right, guys, we'll start. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well on this happy Thursday. This is Damon Lester, president of NAMAD, and welcome to our webinar series. Today, we have our special guest from Roadster, who will be discussing preparing your dealership for digital retailing. Please welcome Rudy Tong.
Thank you, Damon. Appreciate the invite to present to you guys. I've been to a few of your events in the past, so I'm sure I've met a bunch of folks in the organization. I'm going to be presenting with Michelle Denegine, who's our CMO as well. We'll do quick intros, but the content we're going to present today was prepared primarily over the last, I would say, 6 to 12 months for both NADA in one of their training sessions in Virginia and NCM as well. So this is content that has been presented to several groups already. We've gotten a lot of feedback on it. It was mostly built out prior to the COVID-19 situation, but the content is still highly relevant and obviously more relevant than ever before. So we'll give it an extra COVID-19 spin. And then at the end of this, we'd love to hear your questions. Let's do this. Okay, so who am I? So Rudy Toon, I'm the COO at Roadster. I have been working in online automotive for almost 20 years now, so a long time. Been Roadster COO for the last 5 years, and prior to that, ran eBay's vehicles division, and spent a lot of time at AOL running AOL Autos and Autoblog as well. So I've been trying to solve this better shopping experience challenge for a good chunk of my life. Very devoted to it, and I'm looking forward to sharing this content with you. And I'll let Michelle introduce herself now as well.
Hey everybody. So as Rudy said, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Roadster. I've been in the automotive space for over 15 years now. Prior to Roadster, I was the CMO at Edmunds, and I've been with Roadster now for about almost 4 years, coming up on that. I've always been very, very heavily involved in insights, both on the consumer side as well as the dealership experience. So most of my career in automotive has that lens over it, and I'm very excited to speak with you guys today. Just because I'm a huge believer in education, and both Rudy and I actually spent a lot of time talking to dealers about not just digital retailing, but also their businesses, and have a wealth of information we can share. And like Rudy said, we'll definitely talk about what some of this means as it relates to what we're going through right now. A lot of our material, actually this entire deck was pre-COVID-19, but it's interesting to reflect on, things that we were saying before all of this, because it's all very relevant right now. So we'll make sure to talk about that and what dealers are doing in these instances. But we're very happy to be here with you guys today. Thank you.
Cool. So just a little bit of background on, sort of Roadster's perspective on digital retailing, where we come from. The company's 6 years old, but we've been providing digital retailing software to dealerships for about 4 years now, coming up on 4 years. So quite a few years of learning. We were early in the game, and we've learned some hard lessons and applied a lot of those learnings to where we are today, and we've got plenty of other stuff to work on. We're pretty well staffed out in the field. We do believe in visiting dealerships, to Michelle's point about how much time she and I spend talking to dealerships. We have a large field team that is out there, in stores on a regular basis. Obviously right now we can't be traveling, but prior to COVID, we were on the road quite a bit. And we also are around 1,200 dealerships right now. Most of those are in the US. We also have a presence overseas, but we've just got a lot of experience across all the major brands at this point, and are in pretty much every state as well. So we understand that there are differences in different markets, and have a very sort of diverse set of experiences with the dealers. So here's the stuff we're going to cover today. First, we have a little bit of a module on, what type of digital retailing are you ready for? And the definition of digital retailing is very varied, and that's what we're going to get into. I think we did a survey recently with NADA and asked, do you have digital retailing? And 80% of the dealerships said they did, but I could guarantee you that the definition for each of those dealerships was significantly different. So we'll get into that. Michelle's going to spend some time really talking about omnichannel and why you really need to think about this more holistically. This isn't all about, hey, I need to sell a car online because that's the only way I can sell a car. There's so much more to it than that, and she's going to get into that. And we'll talk about the inefficiencies of all the systems and how we need to simplify the overall process to make digital retailing successful. The most important thing, something that's near and dear to my heart, is how do you think about implementing this with a champion, and how important it is to have somebody inside the store or the dealer group that is really dedicated and focused on rolling out digital retailing and then iterating after you roll it out.
Probably the most significant influence to success.
Yes, absolutely. And then Michelle's going to walk you through some best practices for how you promote digitally the experience. We've got some videos as well, if hopefully that'll work and we don't have too much lag on the presentation, but we'd like to show you some videos there too. And then we'll have some time for Q&A. Let's see how much time. Let's try to carve out at least 10 minutes. Okay, so first section, what type of digital retailing are you ready for? And this is a really big question. It's important to first define what are the different types of digital retailing, and then I think you have to sort of ascertain where you are as an organization and how much you can take on over what time frame. Things are accelerated right now, totally get that. Like, you want to do it all, but we just want to try to be as realistic as possible. So I mentioned that 80% of respondents to the survey said they had digital retailing, and I would posit that most of those dealerships are of this variety of digital retailing, call it super lead generation, where there might be some calculators on the website. There's extra information you can learn about the deal that you didn't used to have on a website. Maybe you can see lease payments. You can start to do some trade-in activities, and the customer just does that on their own on the website, and that information, you just kind of pull in, and now you got a super lead, and you've just got more information, which is great, and it's powerful. But that's probably where most dealerships are right now. I call that sort of the pull model, where the dealership is just pulling information out of the customer based on what's on the website. So that's the most common one. The next one we call deal sharing. And it's sort of, if I said pull before, this is push, right? It is having people inside the dealership, the sales agents, it could be the finance managers or directors, actually pushing information to customers that you're already engaging with. It's leveraging the platform to share lots of really good information to get the deal further along, potentially all the way to concluding the deal and finalizing the terms online. And this is incredibly powerful, but it is a different paradigm than the pull model with super lead generation. And then the sort of end state, which is what Roadster really pushes hard for, is the omni-channel approach, which is you're going to do the first two things, but you're also going to be doing quite a bit on the sales floor. This approach of digital retailing really is across all your different sales touch points. And it gets a lot more challenging when you try to bring this into the store and have each sales agent on the floor using the software. But it's really nice because it's consistent with everything else that the customer has seen, online or in any of the other communications that you've had. And so Michelle's going to spend a lot more time on omni-channel, but this is the progression, and it's really important to define each of these and think about how you're going to roll each part out over time, if not right away. And I'll take this one step further. Roadster, we used to just show that that previous slide and talk about the different levels there. We've actually got even more granular as we started working with dealerships. Our field team is in the stores, working with the dealerships, getting feedback on sort of what it is they want to do at different stages, and then cater our training to that. And so then over the last year, we've actually fleshed out this 5-level approach, and each dealership that we work with is in one of these levels. And then we work with the dealership to determine, where do you want to get and how fast do you want to get there. And so, level 1 was a lot of that super lead generation stuff we talked about, online car shopping. And many customers are willing and able to do that. Others struggle with it and require more assistance, so it has its limitations. The lead engagement piece, level 2, is a little bit more of that deal sharing element. It's typically a BDC or internet agents that are working with customers. They're pushing information over to them or engaging with leads with a digital retailing platform. And that becomes incredibly powerful. And then we've seen tremendous success with that during COVID-19 with a full embrace of this type of lead engagement and using digital retailing, because it's really the only way. A lot of these dealerships in certain states where they've been, their showroom has been shut down, this was the only way they could do business. So that's been hugely valuable over the last 2 months. The third level is we call it sales tool. So that's the frontline salespeople doing first, sometimes second pencils on the floor. It might not be the entire sales team, but maybe it's a subset to start with, and then you eventually roll it out across the whole team. And that gets you to level 4, where you've got full sales floor adoption. You've got desk managers that are monitoring activity on the floor, but deals are penciled and really taken, either all the way or pretty far through the process using the digital retailing platform. And then the 5th level is just like, you're really deep into this. You're working with Roadster to evolve the platform and help us think about ways to make it even more efficient for the sales team. So this is a really key part of how we work with dealerships and think about the different stages.
Yeah, what I would add to that is that even though right now a lot of people aren't actively working in their showrooms, these sales strategy development aspects of this are still very much at play. It's just more of like a blending as it relates to some of this lead engagement and how they're sharing with the customer that's at home. I think the big thing as we get into talking about omni-channel, which is connecting, the online experience to the in-store experience, I say in quotes, is it's really how you connect with the team. It's less about where they're located. And so there's definitely lots of instances right now where the showrooms are closed or on appointment, but the sales team is still fully engaged and fully adopting the technology to walk customers through in a virtual way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, we've got we've got dealerships where there's people working from home around the clock, texting, doing phone calls, responding through the Roadster platform, and doing 40, 50 deals by themselves in a month, just working from home. So yeah, you got to wrap your mind around that and think about it differently. But that's the way a lot of dealerships are making it through this time, and actually in some ways thriving on a lower cost structure. So I'll kick it over to you, Michelle, for
So when we talk about omni-channel, like I said, it's how you create a consistent experience. And I talk to a lot of people about reframing that customer experience as putting the customer to work, right? The more that we can actually have the customer do and guide them through the process on their own, the less time it's not only going to take the customer, but it's also going to take our sales team. So you guys have probably seen this data before. This is not new by any means, but this is showing you that satisfaction, when you get to about 90 minutes, significantly drops for the customer. And that there's all of these different experiences that they have in their life that are really shifting the expectations. And I think while this was very true pre-COVID-19, it's 300 times as true now, that people are looking for, how do I, initiate things online? How do I get things delivered to my home? How do I get this in a contactless way, but efficiently, because of everything that's going on? Nobody really wants to spend a lot of time in person with any one individual, even if it's in their driveway. So it's really, really important that when we think about omnichannel, we think about connecting these experiences, that we really think about how can we create process and sales process that really expedites time for everybody involved.
And I would add here that while the sort of contactless home delivery model is certainly in some markets required, in most not yet at this point, this ability to transact quickly in store is incredibly important, right? And we've seen dealerships do quite well reducing the amount of time it takes. But yeah, this was important before. It's way more important now, because no one's going to want to spend 4 hours in a dealership. And our survey results show that. It's nice to see the dealers are responding effectively.
Yeah, in fact, I don't think we have it in this deck, but we, as a company, have been tracking time that it takes to do a transaction. We've just seen in April, a third of the transactions that we track moved to less than an hour of time. So I think that's really meaningful, especially in the environment that we're in, but just generally with customer expectations. Obviously there's going to be customers that want to spend the time, and so we shouldn't be rushing them through. But I think on the overall, they're looking to save time, and in the end, that helps us be more efficient and sell more cars. So it's a win-win. So this is actually talking about, I'm not sure how many people know what Net Promoter Score is, because as an industry, we often talk about CSI scores. But the reason we look at Net Promoter Score, which is really just taking the percentage of people, it's one question, it's would you recommend this dealership to a friend or family member? And they score it from 1 to 10. And it's just a calculation, 9s and 10s are promoters, and then you've got some passives, and then you've got the detractors. So what this is showing you is how other industries are measuring customer satisfaction. So when you look at Tesla, who had 96, as their NPS score, Apple at 72, USAA at 65, these are really good scores, because it's really actually very hard to get to like a 70. So the fact that Tesla's at 96 is, through the roof. But what we did in looking at this was, we started tracking this a while ago. In 2016, the NPS score for an automotive retailer was 48. And according to the data that we pulled at the end of 2018, it was 39. So it actually went down. And it's not to say that we think that as an industry we're doing worse, or that we've modified the experience so much that it's worse than it was before. You have to sort of look at everything, beyond just the automotive industry, and realize that customer expectations are growing. And so that expectation outside of automotive is what's influencing their opinion of what we offer them today. And just as context, what we see when somebody goes through a digital experience, our net promoter scores in the 80s up to 90. So, you start to approach sort of this Tesla-like experience. And I think that is also due to the fact that expectations are low. And so when they're delighted with an efficient experience that's online and, going to save them time, they really take well to that. It resonates with them. So that's something for everybody to keep in mind, because customer satisfaction, customer experience is obviously at everybody's heart, especially right now.
Yeah. And that satisfaction is always a marriage of, the technology in this process was great, and the salesperson was fantastic, and the two of those things together make for those high, 90 plus NPS scores.
Yeah, I think probably about 90% of the reviews that we see in our Net Promoter Score survey mentions the salesperson by name.
Yeah. So this is not. I always try to reinforce, this is not an Amazon buying experience. We can pretend and want it to be that because we think it's going to be a really efficient sales model. That's not how this works, and no one should think of it that way. It's actually a pretty bad analogy. It's a guided process. The salesperson's still critical, and you cannot lose sight of that. All right, here's our little bit of our eye chart. It's a slide that we put together to really try to show what we're trying to achieve here with our dealers. And, it ties in those NPS scores that Michelle just went over. The top layer here is what a more traditional process looks like. On average, I think something like 7.2 people touch every transaction, and a bunch of those people get paid out, some of them more than others. You can see the different titles and how much money ultimately those folks are making as part of that transaction process. It's a lot, and the amount of time it takes is a lot, right? 5 hours. Plus, they're probably working across that team with 8 systems. And so there's just a lot of complexity and costs associated with it that results in inefficient use of resources and a crappy customer experience ultimately. Where we're striving towards, and I wouldn't say we as an industry are here, but we're moving fast towards it, is the bottom view, which is this omni-channel approach, which is really concierge driven. And we get down to probably realistically 2 people working a deal, whether that's an empowered salesperson and a sales manager, it's an empowered person and a finance manager. You pick your process, but it really shouldn't be more than a couple people getting involved. And when you have the systems that support that, right? If you can really reduce 8 down to 1, 2, or 3 systems, that really helps a lot with the complexity as well. And so the goal should be, let's get the customer in and out in under an hour, if that's what they want, and that'll be a better process for everybody. So this is really an encapsulation of everything that we're striving to do here. And so, one of the challenges that a lot of dealerships have is trying to figure out, like, how do I actually measure success here with digital retailing? And it's a good question. And there's a bunch of different ways to do it, depending on what your goals are as a dealership or a dealer group. But we really align things mostly around these 3 pillars, right? It's increasing engagement and having just a deeper relationship with the customer. It's about efficiency and having your sales staff be as efficient and cost effective as possible. And then the customer satisfaction stuff with the NPS and CSI scores, which is very proven to be true. The other, engagement and efficiency are tougher to measure. Some dealerships are pretty good about measuring those things. Efficiency is usually the one that is probably not measured as closely as it could be. And in this, there's a lot of bullets here. I don't want to spend too much time on this slide, but from an engagement perspective, we see far deeper engagement with a good digital retailing platform. Oftentimes, the time spent is twice as high, and the amount of actions taken are far greater as well. So there's a tremendous depth of data to demonstrate the engagement strong. On the efficiency side, right, how many dealerships actually do measure how long it takes for a customer to come through the process? There's a lot we can do there to better understand really how much time is being spent on each deal. and we've got reporting to show that. And it's also like how many cars per month are people selling? We did a webinar this morning with a couple different dealer groups presenting, and they've got salespeople that are selling 40 cars a month, and we know that the average NADA average is somewhere around 9 to 12 typically. If we can even get that number to 15 or 18, it's just a massive win. And this is a key thing to measure as you start diving into digital retailing.
Yeah, in fact, we just did a study, NADA helped us distribute it on the dealer impact of what's happening, because I really feel like this is a point in time right now where, we would never wish this upon anybody, but we had to reduce our staff and try to become more efficient with less people. And so if anybody's interested in that study, it dives deep into this whole section on how many additional vehicles can a salesperson sell when they have a more efficient process. So I'm happy to distribute it after this, but really, really interesting to see at this point in time that people that had to go to skeleton crews really are able to drive, even with demand down as it is, to drive more sales per person in that skeleton environment. And a lot of our dealers are starting to now think of, hey, maybe this makes sense to have people working in pods of like 2 or 3 people that can just be super efficient. So there's some really interesting models that are coming out also as people start to reflect on what they've learned through this time period.
Thanks, Michelle. So I'm just going to kind of list out the different KPIs that are really important to start tracking as you get into digital retailing. And like I said, as a dealership or a dealer group, you got to figure out what are the most important things, and don't track too many things. You really got to focus on probably 2 or 3 that are most important to you. But CSI before and after, really start measuring how much time it takes. And what's kind of cool with what Roadster's doing, we survey customers after they've gone through the buy process with all of our dealerships. And so we're actually asking them, it's not a perfect measurement because it's survey data, but we're asking them how long did it take, and we can track it. It's nice to see that you're knocking off 30 to 45 minutes over time, over the course of rolling this out over 6 months. That's a huge win. Agent engagement, another key thing. How many times have you bought software that just kind of sits on the shelf and the agents aren't using it? You've got tremendous visibility into agent engagement here, and you'll see how they're leveraging the platform. Operating costs, I think, is this is the dark cloud over many dealerships over the years. The operating costs continue to go up while margins are shrinking. So how can you sell more cars with less people, less systems, and really measuring that over time? Employee retention, another just really tough cost that you're absorbing, and the amount of money you're spending on training people. If your dealership's losing 80% of the sales staff over time through attrition, right? That's a huge cost. How do we retain the employees, make them happy, give them the empowering tools so that they stick around and have a job that they enjoy with hours that are reasonable? There's the obvious ones, right? Volume of cars sold, whether it's the total number or the number per employee. And then PVR, that's always a big question. Gosh, if I start selling this transparently, how much am I going to retain, from a PVR perspective? And the answer is it's really depends on how good your process is, right? It's pretty polarizing. The stores that struggle with process don't do a great job on back-end PVR. The ones that get it really dialed in actually do better with digital retailing than they did without it. So these are the key things. There's others that you could measure as well, but these are the ones that we really sit down and talk to our dealerships about.
Well, and I think it's also figuring out for yourself what your objectives are. I think a lot of people will sign up for digital retailing because they think that they need to, or their OEM has really influenced that. But it's really important that for yourself what your objectives are going in and how you're going to measure success, because that's going to dictate the sales process you put around the technology. As Rudy said before, the technology is only part of it. It's probably only about 20%. The other 80% is what you do with it and the process you put behind it. And in order to measure that, you need to make sure you understand what you're trying to accomplish.
And you'll notice leads is not on this list. leads are nice, but in a lot of respects, if your digital retailing platform is doing what it should do, customers are getting answers to questions on their own, and they're not taking up valuable resource time on your end to respond with very basic responses, things that they should just be able to see digitally. Let them see it, and have your conversations be focused on really high value contact points. And so, yeah, this is not about more leads. This is about being more efficient with your process. Speaking of efficiency.
You teed that one up.
Yeah.
This is just going into a little bit of detail of what we've seen and measured in the past. I mean, the biggest thing that we have seen as we talk to dealerships, and this picture is actually a real picture that one of our employees took in visiting a dealership, of all the windows, all the different notes, all the different processes, and it just takes a lot of time to go through that. And there's so many opportunities for us to really streamline that process, and like Rudy said before, the number of systems that we're using into one platform. And so when we look at this, we're always looking at where is the time going, and where can we actually pick up incremental minutes so that we can spend more time with the next customer and the next customer after this. This is a Cox Automotive slide. They did a time study. This is actually fairly old. This was back in 2014, but they were trying to assess how long it's taking to get through this. So 53 minutes for the sales process, 39 minutes for a trade, 28 minutes for F&I, although I think everybody I've ever showed this slide to says that seems low.
Yeah.
So it's just more really thinking through where is the time going and how can we streamline it. If you go to the next slide, Rudy, which I think is more,
yep.
This was our time study. So we did this at the end of 2018, so a little over a year ago. But we wanted to understand how often the salesperson is actually leaving the consumer side and the implication of that time. So what we asked was, how much time are you waiting? Not just how much time does this process take, but how much time are they waiting for these different steps? So it was 56 minutes waiting for the F&I office or in the F&I office, 49 minutes just working through the credit app, and then 34 minutes just sort of sitting to get the deal approved. And we all know, being in the industry, that there has been reasons for these things, right? There's a queued line at the desk, or the F&I office has a current customer in there, and so they're waiting. But the question to ask yourselves, what are your salespeople doing when they're away? And could that time, if they didn't have to be away so much, could that time be used to speed up the process? The other thing that we saw was that satisfaction, as we know, is directly tied to time, but we also learned that it goes down every time the salesperson actually leaves the customer side. So by the time they've left 4 or 5 times, that satisfaction level went from close to perfect down to like 63%. And that's related to, they don't really understand why the salesperson's gone, and they really want to not spend 3 to 4 hours at the dealership. And so it's sort of all tied together. But when we look at this study and we look at the data and we even apply it to now, it's really about how do we become more efficient so that we're not spending a lot of dead time not actually working with that customer. How do we work that customer and potentially work that customer and maybe 2 or 3 other customers at the same time, so that everybody's getting more time back and becoming more efficient. So, this was obviously not a picture taken during the COVID-19, because this would not happen today. But really what this was telling us in summary is that keeping the agents, with the customer, whether that is in person, maybe at some point, I see these little masks on these people now, versus virtually. It doesn't matter. It's really about how can we keep the salesperson with the customer, because it's really good for business if we do. And this was just us calculating what that could mean. And this is going to be different for every dealership, of course, based on what you pay your employees and how many cars you're selling per month. But we wanted to just give a sense for, the cost associated with these hours of time wasted. We did this originally. That time study actually started with a working session that I did at an event where we asked people to just tell us, real time. There were about 30 or 40 people in the room, how much time they think people are spending away from their customers. And it was over 2 hours every time we did that workshop. And so you can imagine if every transaction, you're away from your customer, 1 to 2 hours, this number just even, goes further up as to what the cost savings could be. And then you look at what's happening in the world right now and you say, okay, given the demand, do I need as many people? Could our people be more efficient with their time and sell more per person? And as things recover and demand grows, maybe I have the same staff I had, but I'm able to sell a lot more than I ever thought possible. And that's really what we're talking about here as it relates to time and money.
Yep. So we're going to play a video for you, and I hope it's not too laggy. If it is, we can bail. But this is a video that we shot to demonstrate a lot of what we just talked about. It's a dealership up in upstate New York, Used Car King, part of the Sun Auto Group, and they did a pretty full embrace of digital retailing. And this video is really to show you, what that results in.
This is actually their customers that we interviewed for this video.
Yeah.
To their experience.
Yep. Let's give this a shot.
I was very nervous about buying a car.
My wife wanted something solid, especially in the winters around here. We needed an all-wheel drive vehicle.
We'd shopped around for a while. She test drove a car.
But we didn't have a great experience at the dealership. They were kind of pushy. The man seemed distracted all the time, was always on the phone, like we weren't a priority.
She went right online to Sun Auto's website.
And it was very easy, just on the sidebar. I could click, 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 shot me right to the exact car that I wanted.
You could actually buy the car off of their website,
which we thought was pretty incredible.
Back in the day, there was always a man behind the curtain. It made you feel like someone's trying to pull the wool over your eyes. But walking into this place is beautiful. I got on that big screen here that they have, and everything's laid out: pricing, financing, a million photos of the car. Sliding the bar to see your down payment versus your monthly payment made it even easier to check where my wife and I wanted to be financially.
You trust what's online, and you don't want it to be different when you get into the dealership. Everything was exactly the same.
So there wasn't much more to figure out once we got here. It's the same person, know your information. It's a lot more personable that way.
He pulled up right on the iPad exactly how much it was going to cost us, the difference in pricing. There was no games, there was no confusion.
They made us feel comfortable.
There was no pressure, but I appreciated that we were able to get it done in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
For her to be able to be happy with what we just spent money on, you can't beat that.
Okay, so I think there's a few things to take out of that, but that seamlessness and the consistency from online to in-store, super important now. Making sure that your digital experience really represents who you want to be, and then while some people are going to do that home delivery, a lot of them are still going to come into the store, and you're going to want to have that be as seamless of a process as possible. And so that's just a good manifestation of it in that video right there. That's exactly how you want your customers to feel. Okay, so the next section is about the digital retailing champion, and this is, as Michelle said earlier, the most important thing. There's a lot to consider here as you think about rolling out digital retailing, and if it's you that's going to drive it, just make sure you're carving out enough time. If you're going to assign it to someone, make sure they've got the political capital in the organization to really make things happen, right? So here are the things that the top 5 things really that the champion needs to be thinking about. And we've already gone over this. It's like, what are the objectives? Why are we doing this? And if those are our objectives, how are we going to measure that we're actually successful? And that takes quite a bit of time to actually work through and making sure you get some consensus across the organization. And then once you do actually understand what you want to do, how do you get team buy-in? And that's a whole nother exercise of making sure that the key people in the organization are part of establishing what this is going to be about, starting at the top, right? It has to be supported at the top, but then at each level, how do you get people to buy into this and care and understand what the ultimate outcomes are supposed to be? Once you've got all that and you actually pick a vendor and start the deployment. Now, someone's really got to watch over that because old habits die hard, and there's going to be process change. You're going to need to really detail out what each person's role is in that process change and make sure they understand that, and then continue to measure it. And from there, you're not going to get it right out the gate. How do you sort of scalably roll this out and then make it repeatable and then measure it over and over again and adjust? And because I guarantee you're not going to get it right, you better be prepared to quickly iterate and figure out what changes you need to make and get feedback from the team. Somebody, or maybe it's two people, need to oversee this and really own it, and you have to make them accountable and give them the political capital to make it happen. This is the number one success determinant that you're going to have. Because and I always say you don't know what you don't know, so you're going to have to put people in charge of this that can figure things out, and those people are sometimes hard to come by, but you need to really identify who they are. And the ultimate result is it's dramatic, right? And I could tell you for all of our dealer customers, like which ones really have a good champion, and the results are shown. Like the engagement that you'll see with the platform, both from a customer and from a dealer standpoint, salesperson standpoint, is like 400% higher when you have a strong champion. And the utilization will be stronger in each group, and your layout of how you're going to present this stuff on your website is going to be better, so the customers are going to use it more. It's just going to be an all-around 400+% increase in the engagement if you have a champion. So can't impress the importance enough. So as part of that rollout, right, and thinking about what your champion is going to be working on and what your team needs to be thinking about, it's a pretty big shift, and you're going to be empowering your team to do more and do different things, right? If traditionally your BDC was focused on appointment setting and that's how you measured them, comp them, whatever, right? They're probably going to need to convert over into more of a deal concierge model. And this is where Sun Auto Group and other dealerships have been really good at pivoting and utilizing those resources to become full deal concierge people. They're going to work a deal all the way through, and basically the appointment that they're setting is for delivery, not for kicking off the process. Really key here.
Yeah, I think a lot of dealerships have, just out of necessity during this pandemic, have had to do that, right? Because it's no longer, you can't actually make an appointment and come in. I know that's not true across the country. There are some where you can do that, but a lot of people had to face that they weren't going to, their showroom doors were locked, and so they had to figure out very quickly how to do a lot of this and walk the customer through the process online, so that appointment, it was really either to pick up the car. Some people were setting up tents for curbside pickup, or deliver it to their home.
Yeah. I'm going to blow through these pretty quickly, but I think you'll get the gist, right? This is the transformation, right? The internet team is not just pushing like these static quotes and then getting questions back and doing 8 back and forths. They're sending an interactive deal sheet so the customer can figure it out on their own, and you're only going to have high value conversations versus just answering very basic things. In the showroom team, right? They're ideally, you get to that end state where it's a one-person selling model, and digital retailing can help you get there a lot faster. The desk manager is not just a spreadsheet jockey. They're out there, being a sales coach. They're on the floor helping the salespeople work deals and really adding more value than just the numbers. Same with the F&I manager, right? They're not just a closer. They're actually educating the frontline salespeople on how to introduce the products, ways to prime the pump, so that if they do, if there is still a traditional F&I office, like how do we make sure the customer's ready for that conversation and closing at a higher rate? And if you're not going to have an F&I office, how well educated are those frontline salespeople to really do the whole process? Similar thing with trade. Let's not have it be have your used car manager out there running around. You could actually centralize the process and have very quick responses on values. There's just so many different ways to approach this. and you really need to be thinking about it as you plan for digital retailing. Okay. Same thing with compensation here, right? It's, you can't expect behaviors to change if you're not going to change the comp plans. And so, yeah, start to bonus on CSI, make the team accountable to whether it's pods or it's the whole team, align incentives around CSI. If you want to have millennials doing these jobs, and believe me, this will be a much more attractive job to millennials. We know that's true. They're going to want a heavier sort of salary balance in their comp. And then the things that you care about, if back end is really important, start spiffing those front end salespeople on the F&I that ultimately gets sold. They're gonna do a much better job of actually promoting those products and getting that customer ready for the F&I office. So, got to think about each of these roles differently and how you want to comp them. All right, I'm gonna let Michelle go through some implementation best practices, because this is usually an area that needs a lot of work for most dealerships.
Go to the next slide. Yeah, so this just is more of a summary of what to be thinking about. And actually, I saw this great. I don't know if anybody else saw it. I think it was yesterday. Brian Pash posted this cartoon of somebody saying, "I added a buy now button to my VDP," and like on the right hand side there were like 100 other buttons, and you had to try to figure out where that buy now button was. So the number one best practice is less is more. Limit the number of CTAs on both your search results page and your vehicle detail page. I think we've, as an industry, tended to try to throw every option out there, but there is such a thing as analysis paralysis. There are too many options for the customer, and we really need to guide them through the steps that we want them to take. The second is to be transparent and consistent with your pricing online and in store. I can't tell you how many times, because I also run analytics for Roadster, we're told that this site is really struggling, and we look, and it's because the website, their dealer website is showing every incentive under the sun, or pricing that just isn't really what that customer is going to be applicable to when they get into the digital experience, or their in-store price is different than their online price. So that consistency and transparency is really important. And then one that's obviously very near and dear to my heart, which is incorporating your ability to start online into all of your marketing messages. It's one thing to put it on your website, but if you aren't out there really heavily promoting that you have this capability and figuring out how to weave it into your overarching message, then you're really going to miss the boat and the opportunity to differentiate yourself with it. So sending links proactively to third-party leads, this is huge. We actually have a new product that's coming out that's going to automate this, but we have dealerships across the country that are literally taking every lead that they get, whether it's from Cars.com or Car Gurus or Edmunds or wherever, and instead of just either sending them an autoresponder or sending them a, "Hey, come on into the store" type of message, they're responding with a link to the vehicle detail page within their what we call Express Storefront, their digital retailing application, so that customer can actually start to play with the numbers on their own. And this becomes even more important when you think about sort of the after hours activity, right? There's this whole concept of like, oh, well, I wanted price information, but it's 11 o'clock at night and the dealership's not opened. And so I'm going to throw it over the fence and wait for you to respond in the morning. Well, now all those after hours people can start to build these deals themselves. And in the end, when you get in the morning, you may have an order sitting in your inbox. We have one dealership that calls them their gifts, their presents in the morning when they wake up. So also another really important best practice. So these are just some of the best performing CTAs. These are our recommendations. Obviously, the whether or not you have to unlock a price has everything to do with your ad covenants. So this is oftentimes a requirement depending on the manufacturer or the brand that you represent. But want to make sure that it's very clear that in order to start to see that pricing, that they need to unlock the price and give their contact information. See payment options is our recommended call to action for both the search results page and the VDP. I think a lot of people want to go directly into buy this car, but I think in reality, it's a very, very large purchase, and people are a little intimidated to click that immediately without understanding what that deal might look like. So C payment options is a slightly softer way to enter into that process. And then we always recommend, you know, we weren't blind to the fact that there's people that are coming to your BDP and your SRPs looking just generally at information, aren't ready to do these things. And so it's always good to have an alternate CTA for people that have questions. And like we said before, promotion is super key, making sure that, you know, on your homepage, you have some brand messaging above the fold in some kind of homepage hero that talks about your buying experience. You know, I think for a long time, we've really relied on messages that are around, you know, we have the largest inventory, or we're family owned, and now we've really moved into this world where it's you know, very much about customer experience and what's this buying process going to be like, and that's really where people's focus is on who they're going to do business with. So you want to elevate that into your website and also show them how it works. We actually, as part of our onboarding process, we create this little how it works video for every dealership that onboards with us to give them that experience instantly at launch. A lot of times they'll take it and alter it, customize it themselves, or they might keep it with the video that we've given them. That's totally your choice. But we think it's really important that you spend time thinking through how are you going to message this to the customer that basically comes into your digital showroom and enters your site, because a lot of times your digital showroom is your first point of contact with that customer.
So I want to do a time check here. Damon, we've got some like sort of promotional videos that are, or commercials, if you will, that some dealers have produced that are pretty interesting. But I did want to make sure we had time for questions. So we only have like 6-7 minutes left.
Sure, if you just want to show one, and then we'll just open it up to questions, if that's okay.
Okay. Let's see, which one do we want? Do you want to do this one or this? Oh,
I like the first one better.
okay.
These are examples of what dealers have done to promote their digital buying experience, and they're fun, but they definitely get the point across that, you know, it's a different way to buy.
Cool. So yeah, this, once again, hopefully this isn't too laggy. How did we do on the last one? Was it okay?
It wasn't too bad. You could get the gist, but maybe we can send links to them afterwards too.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Hey, we know Brickle Honda.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
All right. This is one of the funnier ones we've seen. So well, let's give it a go. If I can figure out how to, oh, here we go. Okay.
Then this may sound all too familiar. You drive to the dealership, test drive countless trim levels. Once you find the car you like, you sit down to work with the finance manager to crunch numbers back and forth, until you finally settle on a car payment you're happy with. Not here, not at Brickle Honda. You're a busy person. You don't have time to be at a dealership. You work 8 hours every day and have to drive little John to soccer practice each Tuesday at 5:30. All this paperwork? No, it is just a waste of your time, and it'll cramp your hands. Who likes cramped hands? Not me. Keep practicing, Johnny. Introducing Brickle Honda Direct. With Brickle Honda Direct, you can now start and finish the car buying process anywhere. Your home, your office, even on the go. It's so easy, even little Johnny could do it. Watch and learn. Value your trade? Get pre-approved. Boom. Create your deal. Done. And get your car delivered. Finito. And if you want to return your purchase, all cars come with a 3-day return policy. Just give us a call and we'll set up your return or exchange. Easy peasy. I can't even return this pizza. Ask pepperoni. When it comes to shopping for your next car, wouldn't you rather be here, getting sad, stuck in a comfortable place? Brickle Honda Direct from BrickleHonda.com. Buy a car online. Save time. Start shopping now at BrickleHonda.com.
Michelle, you want any commentary there on that one before we move to the summary?
No, I think it speaks for itself. I like that it's funny and catchy, but I think what you really see is that it's just walking you through the benefit and the parts of the process that customers would like to avoid.
So this is our last slide, and you know, it's just a summary of the things we've talked about. Many of these are often overlooked and then folks struggle. And that first one about setting objectives and KPIs before launching is so important. Otherwise, you just have no idea where you're going. Mapping out that sales process based on those objectives, easier said than done, but there's plenty of dealerships that are doing this well, and Roadster's happy to work through all those different process flows with the dealership. The champion to lead the effort, number one predictor of success. Remember, 400 times, or 4x the level of not 400 times, 400%. The level of engagement when you have a good champion. That's getting buy-in across the team, establishing the new roles and responsibilities. Make sure you've got a go-to-market plan with the stuff that Michelle just sort of laid out. What's your online to in-store strategy? How are you going to make all this stuff sing together? And then continue to sort of evaluate the roles and skills that you need for this new way of doing things, and make sure your comp structure is aligned with the behaviors that you're really trying to get your staff to do. And you might have the wrong people in the job. What I usually say is, you make a change this significant, you've got 33% of the people that are all in gung-ho, they're ready to go and they're going to do a good job. 33% are going to be sort of ambivalent. You can probably make it work with them if it's going to take a little bit extra time. And then the other third, there's a good chance they're just not going to have the right skill set or desire to change. So that's another thing to think about. That's it. I want to make sure we had time for at least 2 or 3 questions. I know we're almost out of time. So Damon, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Rudy. If any of you all have any questions, please use the chat feature. No questions, no questions.
We covered it all so well that.
Yeah, you covered it all.
Yeah.
Damon, I'd also just, I don't know if anybody's interested in that study we referenced. It's brand new. We call it like the dealer impact study, but it goes through profitability and this, efficiency idea in a lot of depth. So if anybody's interested in that, we can either send it to you or they can email me at michelle@roadster.com, and we're happy to pass that on.
If you can email it to me and we can post it with this recording, that would be great.
You got it.
That's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
All right. So Rudy and Michelle, thank you very much for taking the time and helping us and shedding some light in this new digital world that we've all been forced to deal with immediately. And thank you guys, and we appreciate you, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. And thank you all for attending, everyone. Just please be safe and have a great weekend.
Thanks for organizing, Dana.
Thanks for having us.
Guys.
Bye.